So this is one of these videos. I got a couple of questions here from my American colleagues in the USA. And I know for some of them, it's gonna. If it was me, actually, if I was American, and because it must be like if you're American, there must be this kind of aspect where it's like everybody seems to feel enabled to just fucking discuss our issues as if they're their own, or as if they can just fucking start dishing out the advice, whereas they don't do it with anybody else. And I kind of get that. Take it as a compliment. Take it as a tickle under the chin. You're a very important, enigmatic, marvellous country, and so people want to discuss, because it's a kind of a strange country, a huge commitment to democracy and free speech, yet very, very religious. This kind of savage attitude towards healthcare from some people is sort of like, well, yeah, if you want healthcare, fucking pay for it. And if you can't pay for it, it's your fucking issue. And then, of course, the sort of gun culture there. So in some ways, it's very much like a European country, very much like the British Isles, especially because we've got so much in common and so much shared history. And yet these other aspects where you kind of look at the United States and think it's like some kind of fucking, like Pakistan or something in some aspects, So it's a real kind of mix. Which fascinates us, I think. So, but look, I understand. So if your perspective is why don't you shut the fuck up, you limey bastard, I am with you on that. I understand that. In fact, I'd like to precurse, if you're part of the pro-gun lobby, precurse your response with why don't you shut the fuck up, you limey bastard, right? I'd quite appreciate that, and I'd understand where you're coming from. But I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just want to ask a couple of questions, and then just give a few thoughts on a few things. And I'm not entirely anti-gun lobby, as I'll outline my position after the questions. First question. One of the responses from the sort of pro-gun lobby to the anti-gun lobby is, well, we've got a Second Amendment right, a right to bear arms, right, is what it is, isn't it? Which apparently doesn't mean you can wear a T-shirt, which is such a shit joke. I don't even know I did that. It's almost as bad as the other joke I have about having bears. I'm not even going to describe the fucking joke. Right, you've got a Second Amendment right to bear arms, but surely what we're saying is, or not what we're saying because it's not me saying it, but surely what they're saying is that the sort of anti-gun lobby, when they say we should ban guns, what they're saying is we need to do away with that, isn't it? We need to amend that. I mean, I don't know much about the US Constitution, right? I'm a bit fucking ignorant about that, so please explain it to me if that's what it requires. But you can amend it, right? It's a living document, you can amend it. And I kind of gather that by the fact that you already have these things called amendments. So it's been amended in the past. So unless the last amendment you made was an amendment to say there ain't going to be any more fucking amendments, it can be amended. So how is it an argument to say, no, we're not going to do that because we've got a Second Amendment right? Well, yeah, but we're going to amend that so you won't have a Second Amendment right. Isn't that kind of what the position is? So I'm interested in that. And the second one is this. I understand it's really easy for some smug twat in a country like the UK where there's so few guns to sort of start saying, you ought to get rid of all your guns. Look at how little gun crime we have here. Look how few police shootings there are here. And it's true. We've had less police shootings, fatal police shootings in 24 years than the United States had in the first 24 days of 2015. And of course the police have guns because the bad guys have guns, and the good guys have guns because the bad guys have guns. I get all of that, and that's why I'll give you a bit of sympathy in a minute if you're part of the pro-gun lobby. But let's imagine that's probably the best thing as for a magic wand. This is my fucking magic wand. Okay, it isn't my magic wand. It's a fucking Wacom graphics tablet. So if you're thinking Noel Plum's got a magic wand we could do with one of them, well, you've shit out, I'm afraid, because it's not really a magic wand, but imagine it was. And imagine I wave that magic wand, right? And when I wave that magic wand, it makes all the guns disappear. Not just the good guys giving up the guns, but the bad guys giving up the guns. And the police aren't going to be carrying guns anymore. They'll have some in the police station just for when the shit hits the fan, right? But the rest of the time, they won't be carrying their guns either. So if I could do that and get all those guns out of circulation, would your position alter? In other words, what I'm saying is your position that you are pro-guns, pro your right to carry guns because you know that the bad guys have got their guns? And if you didn't suspect the bad guys had their guns, you'd be quite happy to surrender your guns as well, to surrender your right to have guns. Or is it something more fundamental? It's like, well, it doesn't fucking matter what damage guns cause to society or whether society would appear better without it. I've got a right at the moment and I wish to have that right. whatever the cost, right? Which is the position here? That's kind of what I'm interested. I know from my perspective, I sometimes see people talk about this, especially people from outside the United States, as if it's really, really simple, as if just kind of get rid of your guns. Why would anybody want all those guns? And when you're on a little island like we are, imagine what it's like in the UK. We don't have guns. The police don't carry guns, you know. You want the police to turn up with guns, you're waiting a couple of fucking hours where I live before they get anywhere. And in fact, I think it was September, the start of September this year, 770 fatal shootings by the police in the United States, and we had our first of the year, right? And that's with a population of 60 million, so it's not like some little tin pot tiny country where nobody lives. We've still got a fifth the population of the United States, and yet we had our first, and you was in the 770s, blowing us out the water in terms of the police shooting people. But of course the police are shooting people because the police have guns, and I understand the police have guns. Why wouldn't they when the bad guys have guns? And why wouldn't I can understand if you think your house is going to be burgled by somebody who has a gun, then I can understand you thinking, well, actually, if they're going to have a gun, I want a fucking gun as well. So I kind of get that. Of course, that doesn't apply to us, because if my house is burgled, my expectation is not that the burglar's going to have a gun. That's a really, really rare thing to happen. And when the police turn up, the police aren't expecting the burglar to have a gun. So nobody's expecting guns, right? It's like the Spanish Inquisition. Nobody fucking expects it. It's not really like the Spanish Inquisition, actually. But that's the situation, but I understand how different that would be in the United States, and I'm sure if I lived in the United States, I'd feel a little bit differently about it. I think for me, if I went to live in the United States, my position would probably still be anti-gun, because it just seems, if you could get rid of all those guns, I don't see really what purpose is it serving people having all these things that are designed to kill another person if they don't really need them. But it'd have to be a really fucking long-term plan, right? Because there's no simple solution. You've got to kind of disarm. It's like you've got to de-escalate it over decades, maybe 50 years, 100 years, whatever. One little step at a time. Give that years to feed through. You know, we're going to take this away, wait for years, take this next step away. That's probably how I would look at it. But what surprises me with the United States, and I'm sort of, you know, I've given you your questions now, right? So you can, if you're prepared to respond, I'm interested in that. Just a couple of little bits, because it just amazes me the people that you have in the United States, the real sort of gun nuts, not just because there's a lot of people that are not gun nuts that are still have these arguments in favour of guns. I understand that, but you have these gun nuts. I've seen some of them say things like, you know, shall I do the accent? Shall I brave the accent? Fucking hell, it's on the fly. They say something like, "You can't take my fucking guns. I'll blow your fucking brains out." Right? That's their sort of response. Like, it's like, you come for my guns over my dead body, literally. I will keep shooting you until you kill me before you get my guns. And I think it just doesn't make sense. Why do you want those guns? Surely the reason you want those guns is to protect yourself. And the worst thing that could possibly happen that you're trying to protect yourself from is from you getting shot and killed, or killed by some other mechanism. So if you surrendered those guns, the worst thing that could happen, the very worst thing that could happen, is that you end up getting killed a week down the line, a year down the line. And that might happen. But if you refuse to surrender those guns and go out in a hail of bullets, it's going to happen straight away. So it's like absolute madness. It's like what you don't want to happen, you're guaranteeing is going to happen on day one. I just don't get the logic of that. And it seems entirely undemocratic, doesn't it? You've got to be a real hater of democracy to say, well, it doesn't matter if everybody in the country wants this, I'm still not going to give my guns up. I'm going to go down in a fucking hail of bullets. What kind of person in a democracy adopts that position? You're as bad as any sort of Islamist or anybody like that who takes a very, very extreme position, if that is your position on democracy, surely, I propose. And the other thing is that the other one I've got that's tough to get my head around from a kind of, I don't know, European perspective. Maybe we just have a different idea on the state and our government and on our armed forces. But I've heard this one before from the real gun nuts, which is that we need our guns because the army have got guns. But it's not like somebody else's army, it's like their own army. It's like the US Army have got guns, so we need guns to protect ourselves from our own army. And that's just like mind-blowing to me. That's just like, I just cannot understand where that comes from. You need to protect yourself from your own army, not from somebody else's army, from your own army. I mean, what country are they looking at and thinking, well, look at the UK, look at the army marauding round little Cornish fishing villages and little northern towns, raping and pillaging. What's the army going to do? I mean, you voted for the government. It's your government already that runs, you voted for them and they are your government and they govern you. So if they send in the army, what's the army going to do? Say, hold you at gunpoint and now you haven't got your gun to protect yourself, and they're going to say, yeah, that's it, you're now under the authority of the United States government. And you're going to think, yeah, but we already were under the authority of the United States government. You're our army. You're representing our government. You're not a foreign. I don't fucking get that one. How you can have that kind of fear of your own armed force. And the other thing is, of course, it's not like the US armed force is just like any old fucking run-of-the-mill armed force. They're fucking like the bee's knees of armed forces, aren't they? They are the dog's bollocks of armed forces. And however many fucking guns you have dotted around your house, right, you may as well not fucking bother, because they'll just drone strike you. I mean, they're not going to fuck about, are they? You are not going to compete with the military. If they really want to come and take over your little fucking armed shack, right, you're going to lose. It's just not going to, it's like the world's only fucking superpower versus you with your semi-automatic weapon or whatever. There's only ever going to be one winner, isn't there? I just don't fucking get that. So there are these real gun nuts that I just don't fucking get my head around. But there is this one argument that I kind of understand why you wouldn't want to just... You'd be unilaterally, all the good guys get rid of the guns, the bad guys don't. So I kind of get that. Okay, that's pretty much all that I wanted to say. This all triggered, by the way, because I made a video about guns some time ago, and it was about this bullshit line about guns don't kill people, people kill people, which is just stupid, really, because it's like it fails to appreciate the different levels of causality from proximal through to ultimate that we can describe any situation, so it's just ridiculous, isn't it? Well, anyway, I'd made that video. Somebody left a comment on that and saying, you're usually very even-handed with things, Noel, and you don't seem to be very even-handed with this. I actually thought I was even-handed. I pretty much made the same kind of argument that I'd made here with regard to guns in the United States. But anyway, it just got me thinking about it today, so I thought I'd make this little off-the-cuff video. Okay, I think that's pretty much all I'm going to say, so thank you for watching. Bye for now.